Hey everybody, I'm Howard, and this is Otto's Retirement Corner. All right, so now that Trump's going to be in office, it's time for him to start making good on some of his campaign promises. And one of his biggest, best advertised promises was to deport 10, 15, his number is 20 million immigrants here illegally. And he's serious about it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm not going to say whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. I'm just going to talk about, whether it's practical and what's actually going to probably happen. Certainly all of you will tell me whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea. I have no doubt about that. So I'm interested in hearing your opinions. My last video, hundreds and hundreds of comments, and I love that. I love the fact that you are having conversations with each other. The tone gets a little irate at times, but that's okay. All's good. Again, I don't delete anything, so say what you want to me. It's all good. Deportation. So now Trump has announced that his head of the border will be Thomas Homan. And this guy does not mess around. He is the architect of the separation policy during Trump's last administration, the first couple of years, where kids were taken from their parents and separated from them within the country. His theory behind that was it was a deterrent for others looking to bring their families into the country. Make of it what you want. He's a serious guy. He's 100% behind the idea of doing this, and he's going to go after it. All right? No doubt in my mind. So first of all, let's look at the logistics of this. First of all, they're talking about the first people they'll throw out are the criminals. All right, well, if you know they're criminals and they're in our prison system, fine, deport them. I don't think anybody would be against that. I don't know why they wouldn't have been deported already anyway. So after that, okay, now you've got people here illegally. So how do you identify them? There's if they snuck in, there's not a good record of them. So finding them is logistically impossible when you're talking about those numbers. If you're looking for 5, 10, 15, 20 people, okay, maybe you'll find them. So finding them is extremely difficult, even once you identify them. All right, we know this guy lives in such and such a town. If he knows he's being looked for, he's hiding, or he's going to another city, or maybe he goes back to where he came from and sneaks back in later. I don't know. All right, so now we got to start tracking people, following people, hunting down people, doing detective work, and then you arrest them. So what do you do with them then? You don't, just throw them on a bus or a train or a plane and send them back. Now you have to house them because, to make this affordable in any sense of the word, you can't send back every single person you find. You're going to have to house a group until you can send them back as a group. So you're going to have to build barracks or detention centers. The prisons aren't going to hold these people. You're going to have to build them regionally. There's going to be 20, 50, 100, 200 of these centers to be able to do this on a nationwide scale, unless they start in small local regions. Certainly down by the border cities would be the first place they would logically do these. Now we have to feed them, take care of them health-wise, and regardless of what you people think, or whatever people think, the federal government does not pay to house people here illegally. We do it with people here legally and not yet citizens, but not people here illegally. That does not happen. And, there's also probably going to be medical costs involved. All right, now you're looking at transportation. The quickest, easiest way to do this is by air. So now you either have to, buy a fleet of planes or, hire them and then, fly out 200-300 people at a time in large planes to whatever city, and these cities could be all over the world, although mostly they'll be in Mexico and Central America. They talk about all these people that came over from China. Are you going to send flights to China? Again, these are huge, huge costs. So, now we ask, who's going to do this? The group that was called INS or ICE, now it's USCIS, I believe it is. They employ about 20,000 people, and they're scattered around not just the country, but in other countries also. Some are administrative, some are field agents. You're not going to run up millions of people with the 5 or 10,000 field agents they might have. So now you got to hire people. They talk about using the National Guard. Okay, well, you could do that. There's a cost to that, obviously, but then you don't have the National Guard available for when you may need them to do other things. And whoever, whether you hire or move National Guard people in, there's a training. It's going to take 3, 6, 9 months. I don't know. You're actually training people to be police. It's going to be a dangerous job. They're going to have to be armed. They're going to have to be able to track and find people and arrest people. So, the budget of USCIS is about $6 billion right now, and that's a meaningless amount when we talk about this. So, what are the costs? How much would it cost to do this? I read all sorts of estimates. I heard one today, $20,000 per person. So to find one person and deport them is going to cost $20,000. They talk about 1 million people a year. Well, that's 2,700 people a day, every day, 365 days a year. What kind of force will we have around this country that's going to be able to find and arrest 2,700 people a day? I mean, the logistics of this are just mind-numbing when you really sit down and think of this. And I did when I heard these promises, a year ago, 2 years ago, when Trump started saying this. And I knew it was impossible, but he knew his base was going to love this idea, and most of them weren't going to think about whether it's logistically or financially possible. The other figure I heard, one independent entity came out with 88 billion per million people. So, if they do 1 million people a year, okay, 88 billion, 100 billion, 60, where's that number? I don't know. I don't know that they know. I don't know if they've included all the possible costs in that. So the other number they came up with is over the next 10 years, it'll cost about $1 trillion, just under $1 trillion. So it's a lot of money. And where's that money come from? I think what most Republicans would say or want to say is, well, if we get rid of the Department of Education, there's several $100 billion a year there. If we get rid of EPA, there's another almost $100 billion. You can get most of the way there by getting rid of those two departments. And certainly it's something they're going to consider. Again, there's people who are wildly against having a Department of Education. And, in the Project 2025 document, they talk about getting rid of that. They talk about getting rid of the EPA. So that's something we have to look at. And how this all happens legally is another question. Can it be done by an executive order? Do they need congressional approval? Trump can say it's a national emergency. I'm writing a executive order, and that's worked in the past. And it may likely work now. But it doesn't get around the logistics, and it doesn't get around the funding. So even if they somehow approve it, I don't know whether that's go through Congress or Senate for the money. That's up in the air right now too, but where does it come from? So if they don't get rid of those departments immediately, we have to borrow the money. And we'll go on to our annual deficit and our built-up debt, and we'll pay interest on it, and does anybody care at this point? We're approaching 35 trillion in debt. What's another, trillion over 10 years? I mean, it's meaningless compared to that. And then we have to look at, what are the ramifications of this? What if they pull this off and they actually deport 1 million people a year? I'm going to come out and say that's, number one, it's not going to happen. They're not going to deport 1 million people, especially in the first year. It's going to take them 6, 9, maybe 12 months to ramp this up. And my guess in the first year, you'll see numbers of 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, whether they're true or not. Those are the more realistic numbers. After that, if they get it going, is it 100,000 people a year? 200,000 people a year? I don't know. Can they just break even with what's coming across the border already? I don't know. It's just such a far-fetched idea that we can deport that number of people. So I seriously don't see it happening. But the other issue is, the low-hanging fruit is, okay, they go into many businesses where they know that illegal aliens, illegal immigrants are working, specifically agriculture. The textile industry is big for that. And anything where they can just quickly hire untrained people. And they could find 50, 75, 100, 200 people at a time and arrest them and send them to detention centers and go around the country doing that. And that's the low-hanging fruit early on is okay, we wipe out the farms in California or it doesn't even matter, Iowa, they're picking soybeans or corn. Well, corn's not picked by hand, but you get the point. They're working there. So okay, now what do those industries do? What does that do to our economy? All right, so these are the jobs supposedly that Americans won't take. So how do you get Americans to take these jobs once you get rid of illegal immigrants? Well, you'd have to raise your pay rate, number one. Were they paying, were they making the equivalent of $7 an hour, $10, 15, 20? Where's it go? I don't know, but it's going to have to go up. Whatever it was, it's going to be more. And so now it's inflationary. And it's going to take a long time to fill those positions. So maybe we have product shortages, maybe we have fruit and vegetable shortages. I don't know. So these are all the issues that I want to bring up and talk about. It makes a good headline. We're going to deport 20 million people and, make our country safe again. But it's not going to happen. So tell me what you think. Again, I'm sure this will be controversial. That's fine. Give me your comments. And, your opinion's as valid as mine. And thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Please recommend and comment. Thanks. Bye.